Hi, friends. I have a little bit of a content warning before we start. I'm going to be talking about civil rights activist Malcolm X and how he came to be an activist. And this includes references to slavery and discrimination. These references are developmentally appropriate and necessary for white children and adults to hear, but they are potentially triggering for Black people and people of color. I'll be putting a photo of Malcolm on the screen, so if you are a Black person or person of color who would rather not hear these references, please feel empowered to turn off your audio, and I'll take the photo down when that part of the story is finished so you know it's time to turn it back on. So, once upon a time, there was a man named Malcolm. Now, when Malcolm was born in Nebraska in 1925, he was given the name Malcolm Little. As a teenager, he was very good in school and he wanted to be a lawyer. He did really well for a really long time, but he gave up when a teacher said that he couldn't be a lawyer. Now, why would a teacher say that? I know that all of my teachers always told me that I can be anything I want to be, and I say the same thing to the kids that I teach. So, discouraging him from his dreams doesn't make sense, does it? Well, Malcolm was Black, and his teacher believed that that meant he couldn't be a lawyer or a doctor or any other profession that was considered to be for white people. This was hugely disappointing for Malcolm, and he soon dropped out of school. So, being Black influenced almost every part of Malcolm's life. It was suspected that his father was killed for being Black by racist people, just like folks like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor are still being killed for being Black by racist people. Malcolm realized that being Black even influenced his name. Not too long before Malcolm's time, his family was brought to the United States from Africa as slaves. They were stripped of their dignity, their freedom, and of their family names. Because enslaved people were considered the property of their white owners, they were forced to take their last names, which is how Malcolm's family ended up with the last name Little. When Malcolm was an adult, he decided to change that. He changed his last name to X and later explained in his autobiography that he chose X to represent the African family name that he could never know. Malcolm X continued to create change through his activism and ministry. He first became well known when he led a gathering of over 500 people demanding response after an incident of racially motivated police brutality in New York City. He met the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and both men are considered father figures of the civil rights movement, but the two activists did have very different philosophies. Now, this is hardly a comprehensive overview of Malcolm's life or viewpoints, and I encourage you to do some more research and learn more. What I'd like to focus on is the fact that Malcolm chose to claim his identity and his values, and he made changes in line with that identity and those values. And that makes me wonder, what might that look like in our community? So, last week in RE here at UUCT, the kids and I talked about the proposed eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism. This was developed by Paula Cole Jones, and through her work with UU congregations over 15 years, she realized that the seven principles as they exist now lack a commitment to dismantling oppressive racist systems. She thinks that if we clearly state um, and live up to such a commitment, it would amplify the other principles to their full potential. So she developed what she hopes will become the eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism. And the cool thing is that we're a living tradition and we can make changes like that. We can add and change things when new information becomes available. And so it is possible that this could become the eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism. And some congregations are already independently adding it. So in a minute, I'm going to read you the text of the proposed eighth principle. And while you experience those words, take a moment to reflect on what you think Unitarian Universalism could be at her full potential. Consider what legacy you would want for yourself if you were one day considered a parent figure in our movement, and what it might take for us as individuals and as a congregation to make that legacy so. The proposed eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. May it be so.